The Attitude Era was a different time. As a label, Attitude was first used in 1997 to reflect not only the edgier product, but also how much spirit, ability, and skill it took to be a wrestler. It was as gross as it was great, and it really was a different time. Hello there, my very good friends. I'm Andy from What Culture, and here are 10 things you didn't know about WWE in 1999. Number 10. WWE outdrew WCW at the Georgia Dome. Shocking if not surprising at the time, WWE had become such an unwavering, unrelenting success story by the fall of '99 that barging into the enemy's spiritual home and making it their own was par for the course rather than some sort of transgression. The iconic Atlanta venue had played host to the legendary WCW title change between Bill Goldberg and Hulk Hogan in the red-hot summer of '98, but a spectacular creative and financial collapse, including the infamous finger poke of doom, saw that Nitro crowd drop from 41,000 to 25,000. If that wasn't bad enough, most of the locals hadn't switched off but simply switched over. Raw packed in 33,000 for the October Raw taping there and went from strength to strength. WCW, by accident or design, never ran the venue again. Number 9. Two 30,000 plus Raw attendances. Running the Georgia Dome was as much a public statement from Vince McMahon that WWE was on the top of the wrestling mountain again as it was an attempt to draw a big house and make money at the gate. 30,000 plus people squashed in for a mere television taping, which was a nice bonus for atmosphere and vibes, and there's every chance the whole crew would have been wanting another taste of that after a sensational edition of Raw at Toronto's Sky Dome earlier in the year. That night, an eye-watering 41,432 got a slice of the good stuff. Once a place fit for the historic Hulk Hogan-powered WrestleMania in 1990, the iconic venue was home to the flagship and hottest story in all of pro wrestling. Vince McMahon and Steve Austin at long last faced off ahead of finally going one-on-one in a steel cage match at St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and the image of the boss screaming in the rattlesnake's face became one of the defining images of their entire multi-year story. Number 8. An insane SummerSlam statistic. Although WWE had been one of the modern innovators of pay-per-view since the mid-80s and stacked them up at a rapid rate after going monthly in 1995, SummerSlam 99 proved to be the first time a very significant trifecta of results went down. It took until SummerSlam for all three of the original WWE Triple Crown titles to change hand on the same night. WWE Tag Team Champions Kane and X-Pac lost their straps to The Undertaker and Big Show. In the evening's opener, Jeff Jarrett dethroned D'Lo Brown to score his 6th and final IC title. And at the other end of the card, Stone Cold Steve Austin was dropping his WWE Championship, not to Triple H as was originally planned, but to a Mankind specifically inserted to transition the belts between each of his opponents. Number 7. The hidden last hurrah of a company legend. Gorilla Monsoon's final on-screen appearance for WWE was bittersweet. A WrestleMania 15 cameo as a judge for Butterbean's destruction of Bart Gunn in a brawl-for-all encounter resulted in the company legend and industry icon getting one of the biggest reactions on the entire show. It was also a realization for everybody watching just how rapidly the Hall of Famer's health was declining. A WrestleMania standing ovation was quite a fitting send-off for the legendary figure before his unfortunate passing in October. But there was an epilogue of sorts for one of the company's longest tenured voices in the form of the UK airings of Superstars. Interestingly, he worked those shows as a tweener as WWE president, and he tended not to take an anti-corporation stance even if it meant not backing the baby faces of the day. It's strange, really. Gorilla's voice didn't fit the product anymore, but he was still a welcome addition. When just about every aspect of the company had pivoted to the excesses of Attitude, he was a holdover that provided a brief but welcome relief. Number 6. A WWE WCW Super Show. Well, sort of. Curtis Comes Home was a 30th of July supercard featuring a host of wrestlers from WWE, WCW, ECW, and beyond, serving as a fundraiser for beloved referee Brian Hildebrand, aka Mark Curtis. Hildebrand was suffering from stomach cancer at the time and used the money to go towards his medical bills, easing his situation somewhat before his tragic passing later in the year at just 37 years old. Such was his popularity that all the wrestlers worked it for free. The major organizations even funded travel for their participating performers, and the show even featured a rare WWE versus WCW match. Again, sort of. Chris Jericho had yet to debut in WWE when he squared off against the company's backstage interview man Terry Taylor. Coincidentally, Y2J's debut for the market leader wasn't too far off from Taylor jumping the other way. The former Red Rooster was back doing interviews and more for WCW until the organization was bought by Vince McMahon in 2001. Number 5. Snake bitten by a rattlesnake. Bruce Pritchard has spoken on multiple podcasts about how Steve Austin was by far the most challenging talent he ever worked with, echoing sentiments by others implying that the rattlesnake would and could brick wall ideas if they didn't fit his character. Such is the prerogative of a top star, and in this case, the top star that returned the company to the peak of pop culture. But as Vince Russo came closer and closer to exiting WWE in the autumn, so too did one of the names Austin declined for end-of-year programs. Per lots and lots of stories at the time, Austin scoffed at plans for him to feud with Jeff Jarrett and Billy Gunn. The latter ended up working with The Rock before being awkwardly placed back alongside New Age Outlaws partner Road Dogg, while the former followed Russo out the door to Atlanta when the moment came. The two things might have been related as well. The same stories suggested that Russo's allies felt Vince McMahon should have stepped in to support the writer, and the decision to not do so added to Russo's mounting lists of reasons to leave. Number 4. Chris Jericho's rocky start. Long before Vince Russo's name became associated with the worst moments in wrestling history, his creative vision was credited constantly as to how and why WWE had turned their business around. The ramifications when he left seemed enormous, and allegedly had a knock-on effect on Chris Jericho. Y2J's earliest days in the company weren't the happiest, and Wade Keller reported as much at the time. When Russo scripted Jericho to beat The Rock on October 4th, WWE's bookers, according to Keller, changed the finish to The Rock winning. At that stage, Jericho simply hadn't impressed management or his fellow wrestlers with his in-ring ability or his ability to sustain heat in his matches. Presumably a Russo favorite anyway, Jericho losing to The Rock was the closest either man had to a payoff from the Canadian's iconic debut. As it was, Jericho wasn't able to score that huge victory, and in fact would be forced to wait another 2 years before The Rock became the first of the established WWE top-line crew to put him over with genuine conviction. Number 3. Michael Cole spoiled the main event of WrestleMania. Some people would argue that Stone Cold Steve Austin spoiled the main event of WrestleMania himself when he turned up wearing a t-shirt for his one-on-one showdown with The Rock, but the rattlesnake forgetting his signature black vest for the night was forgotten as soon as the pair started throwing fists. The hottest match in pro wrestling couldn't be tempered by the aesthetic setback, and nor was the live crowd in the building aware that a Michael Cole commentary flub had kinda clued the people in at home as to who was winning. When plugging a home shopping channel link up starting after WrestleMania, Cole noted how "we'll hear from the new WWE champion" with his post-game comments. A misspeak that was missed by plenty. Those who picked it up didn't let Cole forget over the years. Though not the specific reason Michael ended up being switched out for a returning Jim Ross in the headline bout itself, the overwhelmingly positive response that JR received was as much to do with the fans thinking it was still very much his position. And lots of Cole's little gaffes like this over the years were only part of the reason why. Number 2. Gone forever equals 55 days. Vince McMahon is no stranger to a bold-faced lie. And when the chairman's loose relationship with the truth met Vince Russo's chaotic booking energy, one of the biggest payoffs in company history was undone in less than 2 months. Fully Loaded's main event between Steve Austin and The Undertaker was primarily for the WWE Championship, but an end-of-an-era stipulation was added to the First Blood match to ensure that the last cut would be the deepest. It was simple. If Austin lost, he would never get another shot at WWE's top title. If he won, Vince McMahon would be gone for good. Capping a rivalry that had kicked off in late '97, the stipulation felt like a suitable final chapter, particularly as McMahon had the opportunity to take a step back with his character while it was still red hot. But instead, the heat morphed into cheers when he returned as a babyface opposing Triple H just a month and a half later. Vince would then write himself off TV again in December, lasting a tiny bit longer before coming back as part of McMahon in Every Corner for WrestleMania 2000. Number 1. The Stone Cold Truth. Is what exactly? At Survivor Series 1999, Stone Cold Steve Austin was hit by a car. This ruled him out of the planned main event WWE Championship clash with Triple H and The Rock, and indeed out of all physicality for the better part of a year, save for a memorable cameo at Backlash 2000 in April, with the whole story being remembered for the terrible payoff involving Rikishi than anything else that actually happened in the aftermath. aftermath, it escapes criticism from being one of the worst ever bait-and switches in WWE history. The phrase "card subject to change" exists for a reason, but the Wrestling Observer reported that WWE and Austin both knew enough by November 5th, that's 9 days before Survivor Series, that the test results on Austin's previously injured neck were enough to rule him out of action immediately. They knew he wasn't going to be able to wrestle on the show, and yet they advertised it anyway. The in-ring records backed this up as well, because in the build-up to Survivor Series, Austin hadn't wrestled since the 1st of November, suggesting that even if the pay-per-view was a goer, he couldn't be risked for any other dates in the interim. For his part, Bruce Pritchard has denied the timeline. He's disputed it, suggesting on his podcast that people didn't know until the day before or the night before, and that everything was up in the air until just before the show. The ambiguity around the decision was the last of the show's concerns. It was a total stinker of a pay-per-view that appeared to suggest Vince Russo's acrimonious departure from the creative team would make things even worse. Like I said at the start of the video, it was a different time. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I've been Andy. Check out the video that's currently on your screen, and I'll see you later.